The 1980s. That reminds me of a story. Once upon a time, there was this rad teen named Donnie the Groove. Donnie was your typical 80s teenager. He loved playing some of the most popular games of that time, like Pac-Man. He also enjoyed playing with Cabbage Patch Kids and My Little Pony, and he watched MTV every day. His favorite phrase was, "Don't worry, be happy." Now Donnie is all grown up, and he's a history buff. He loves talking about the 80s and sharing all he knows about that time period. The beginning of the 80s wasn't all that great. The early 80s had a severe global economic recession. Unemployment was the highest since the Great Depression, at 10.8%. The recession started in July 1981, and it reached its peak in November and December of 1982. Ronald Reagan became president in 1980 and served 2 terms. He advocated for reductions in government spending and tax cuts for both individuals and corporations. This was called supply-side economics. Reaganomics claimed that people would invest their tax savings in business, thereby creating jobs, increasing consumer spending, and generating higher tax revenues. This is how Reagan helped with the high unemployment rate. Congress then responded to Reaganomics by passing a 3-year plan to cut federal income taxes by 25%. This was the largest tax cut in U.S. history. One of the domestic issues was to decrease inflation and to decrease government spending. Another large domestic issue was the Cold War that was still going on. The U.S. and Soviet Union were not getting along because of America's foreign policy and containment, and they even boycotted the Olympics when they were held in each other's countries. By the late 1980s, the Soviet Union started losing power. In 1989, the destruction of the Berlin Wall was met with cheers, and the people of Germany worked together to make themselves whole again. The 1980s were also a good decade for women. Sandra Day O'Connor was the first female Supreme Court justice. During this decade, Geraldine Ferraro also became the first woman to win the nomination for vice president. Even though it seemed like it was a good decade at times, the war on drugs began. Crack and cocaine were introduced, which dramatically increased crime rates. Besides drug and crime rates, what didn't help was the introduction of AIDS. The 1980s. They were the best of times, they were the worst of times. That reminds me of another story.